In the stillness of the night, a figure emerged from the shadows, a lone survivor amidst the chaos of the battlefield. The earth beneath him was soaked with the remnants of violence, blood, and the detritus of war mingled together, painting a grim picture of the conflict that had just unfolded. He moved cautiously, each step a reminder of the horrors he had witnessed. The air was thick with the stench of death, and the distant flicker of campfires illuminated the silhouettes of the enemy who had retreated to the hills, their voices rising in a haunting melody that echoed through the darkness. It was a song of triumph, a testament to their victory, while he, stained by the remnants of battle, sought only to escape as he navigated through the wreckage of the fallen. The bodies of comrades and foes alike lay sprawled across the ground, a testament to the brutality of man. The moonlight cast eerie shadows over the scene, and he felt the weight of despair pressing down on him. He moved southward, guided by the stars, the only constant in a world that had turned chaotic. The howls of wolves filled the night, a reminder of the primal nature that lurked just beyond the edges of civilization. He pressed on, driven by an instinctual need to survive. With the dawn came a new sense of urgency. He spotted a rocky outcrop. In the distance, a potential refuge from the horrors of the night. As he climbed the uneven terrain, he heard a voice calling out, a faint echo in the vast emptiness. He paused, straining to see through the haze of exhaustion and fear. A figure emerged, a fellow survivor, ragged and bloodied, struggling to navigate the rocky landscape. The two men exchanged wary glances, each sizing the other up for potential threats or alliances. The newcomer introduced himself as Reyes, a name that carried weight in the region, known for bravery and cunning. Reyes had escaped a band of marauders, his horse having succumbed to the arrows that had rained down during the ambush. Together, they took stock of their situation, sharing stories of loss and survival. They were both remnants of a world torn, apart by conflict, united now by their shared desperation. As the sun rose higher, they decided to move, following a trail marked by the remnants of a recent skirmish. The landscape was harsh and unforgiving, with jagged rocks and sparse vegetation. Reyes pointed out signs of the enemy's passage, broken branches, and disturbed soil land. They moved cautiously, aware that danger could be lurking just beyond their sight. They spoke little, the gravity of their situation weighing heavily upon them, each lost in his own thoughts. By midday, they stumbled upon a small creek, its waters glistening in the sunlight, a beacon of hope in the desolation. They knelt by the bank, cupping their hands to drink, the cool water refreshing in the heat. As they filled their canteens, they noticed the remnants of a camp nearby, discarded gear and a few charred bones, remnants of those who had not been as fortunate. The sight served as a grim reminder of the fragility of life in these harsh lands. After resting, they continued their journey, moving cautiously through the canyon that flanked the creek. The walls rose steeply on either side, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch endlessly. They could hear the distant sounds of wildlife, the rustling of leaves, and the occasional call of a bird. But the serenity was deceptive. They were not alone. As they rounded a bend, they spotted a group of men ahead, their figures silhouetted against the sun, their posture relaxed, yet alert. Reyes motioned for silence, and they crouched low, observing the group. It was a band of raiders, their clothing tattered and worn, faces marked by the hardships of their existence. They were gathered around a fire, cooking what appeared to be the remains of an animal. The two men exchanged glances, the unspoken understanding passing between them. They needed to avoid confrontation at all costs. They decided to backtrack, retracing their steps to find another route. As they moved away from the creek, they could hear the laughter of the raiders, a sound that sent chills down their spines. The world felt increasingly hostile, and the weight of their situation pressed heavily upon them. They were not just running from the physical threat of violence. They were fleeing the despair that threatened to consume them. After several hours of navigating the rocky terrain, they found a narrow ledge that overlooked the valley below. From this vantage point, they could see the remnants of a village, smoke rising from the ruins, a stark contrast to the vibrant life that had once flourished there. The sight was haunting, a reminder of the lives shattered by conflict. They watched as a few figures moved among the ruins, scavenging for anything of value, their movements furtive and desperate. "Should we help them?" the kid asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Reyes shook his head, his expression grave. "We can't risk it. We're barely surviving ourselves." The kid nodded, understanding the harsh reality of their situation. They were not in a position to offer aid. They needed to focus on their own survival. As the sun began to set, they made their way back down the rocky path, seeking shelter for the night. They found a small cave, its entrance concealed by overhanging brush. Inside, they settled down, the darkness enveloping them like a shroud. They shared a small fire, the flickering flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. Reyes pulled out a small piece of jerky, offering it to the kid. They ate in silence, the weight of their circumstances hanging heavy in the air. That night, as they tried to sleep, the sounds of the desert filled their ears, the rustling of small creatures, the distant howl of a coyote, and the ever-present wind that whispered through the canyon. The kid lay awake, staring into the darkness, thoughts racing through his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom, the sense that danger was always lurking just beyond the reach of the FIRELIGHT. In the early hours of dawn, they awoke to the sound of footsteps outside the cave. Reyes motioned for silence, and they pressed against the cool stone, listening intently. The footsteps grew louder, and they could make out voices, harsh and guttural. The raiders had found them. Panic surged through the kid as he realized they had to act quickly. They gathered their belongings and prepared to flee, hearts pounding in their chests. As they slipped out of the cave, they moved stealthily, keeping low to the ground. The raiders were only a few yards away, their figures silhouetted against the rising sun. The kid's breath caught in his throat as he spotted a glint of metal, a weapon, in one of the raiders' hands. They needed to get away before they were discovered. With a silent nod, they began to move, skirting the edge of the canyon and heading toward the cover of the trees. They moved quickly but cautiously, aware that any sound could alert the raiders to their presence. As they reached the tree line, the kid glanced back, heart racing, and saw the raiders begin to stir, their voices rising in alarm. "Run!" Reyes hissed, and they took off, sprinting through the underbrush, branches whipping against their skin. The sound of pursuit echoed behind them, the raiders shouting as they realized their quarry was escaping. The kid pushed himself harder, adrenaline fueling his flight as he raced through the dense foliage, zigzagging to avoid detection. They burst into a clearing, the sunlight blinding for a moment, and the kid skidded to a halt, scanning the area for a way to hide. They spotted a thicket of bushes and dove into it, hearts pounding in their chests. They pressed close together, holding their breath as the sounds of pursuit drew nearer. The raiders' voices were harsh and angry, and the kid could hear the rustle of leaves as they searched the area. Time seemed to stretch as they waited, every second feeling like an eternity. The kid could feel the weight of Reyes beside him, the two of them sharing a moment of silent understanding. They were in this together, two souls fighting for survival in a world that had turned against them. After what felt like an eternity, the sounds of the raiders began to fade, their voices growing distant as they moved away from the clearing. The kid let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding, and Reyes shifted beside him, a mixture of relief and exhaustion washing over them when they finally emerged from their hiding place. The world felt both familiar and foreign. The landscape had changed, marked by the passage of danger. They moved cautiously, aware that the threat could return at any moment. They decided to head toward the mountains, hoping to find refuge among the rocky OUTCROPs. As they climbed higher, the terrain grew steep and treacherous, but they pressed on, driven by the desire for safety. The air grew cooler, and the landscape opened up, revealing a breathtaking view of the valley below. They paused to catch their breath, the beauty of the scene contrasting sharply with the violence they had escaped. "Look at that," the kid said, pointing toward the horizon. "It's beautiful." Reyes nodded, but his expression was somber. "Beauty doesn't change what we've seen," he replied. "We have to keep moving." The kid understood the truth in Reyes' words. They couldn't afford to linger. Danger was still lurking around every corner as they continued their ascent. They encountered remnants of past lives, a broken cart, rusted tools, and the remnants of a campfire, long extinguished. Each discovery told a story of struggle and survival, a reminder that they were not the first to traverse these lands. They pressed on, determined to forge their own path.